Hi, everybody. Welcome to English Digest. I'm Tom.
Hi, I'm Stephanie.
And we're continuing with our literature unit for this month, the month of April. And our featured work of literature is The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock. Today's unit's the third day when we actually talk about the poem itself. We kind of break it down and talk about some of the ideas and themes and why we think you should give it a shot and try to read it. And this is nice because it's actually a poem, which is not as long as a novel like War and Peace or something like that. So it should take you only about a half hour to read it, but it'll take you probably several days, if not several years, to actually understand it, which is what poems are all about. So let's get to it, everybody. Let's read the entire contents of today's lesson right now. The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock is referred to as a dramatic monologue, a kind of poem in which a fictional character addresses a silent listener. To make Prufrock's inner voice heard, Eliot adopts a literary technique called stream of consciousness. This narrative method attempts to record the thoughts, perceptions, and even memories passing through a character's mind. The way Prufrock exposes his interior world thus becomes an iconic soliloquy in English poetic history. The widely quoted first lines of the poem are significant in that they set the tone for the rest of the work. The comparison of the evening to an anesthetized patient lying on an operating table reflects Prufrock's frame of mind. The image implies that his spirit is in a dreadful state and needs to be cured. Moreover, anesthesia engenders a sense of paralysis, foreshadowing Prufrock's lethargy and irresolution in the face of decisions. The reference to Hamlet in the latter part of the poem also echoes this condition, as the most indecisive hero in English literature is best known for his analysis paralysis. From a historical perspective, The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock presents a bleak picture of humanity's collective psyche that is shattered by World War I. The post-war generation was traumatized by the past, worried about the future, and helpless in the present. For many modernist writers, human civilization was crumbling and the world was fractured. This feeling of fragmentation was demonstrated in Prufrock's stuttering hesitation and sense of being. His existence seems to be only an accumulation of numerous worthless moments, as he broodingly remarks, "I have measured out my life with coffee spoons." Despite its gloomy imagery, The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock continues to engage modern readers.
So as we always do, we're going to analyze a little bit of the message, the themes that are going through the poem, The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock. It's referred to as a dramatic monologue. Dramatic means drama, kind of exciting, overblown. Sometimes it just means something that you can see on stage. But a monologue is a speech that's given by just one character. It's different than a dialogue. A dialogue is a conversation between characters, two or more. But a monologue is just one person. It could be in a film where, he just talks to himself or talks out loud and nobody else is around. Or on stage, you'll see monologues. Hamlet has a famous monologue, remember, to be or not to be. So this is described by people as being a dramatic monologue, a kind of poem in which a fictional character, someone who isn't real, who is invented by T.S. Eliot, he addresses a silent listener, as if somebody is listening, though you can't see them there.
Indeed. So it's a dramatic monologue, okay? And it goes on to say here, to make Prufrock's inner voice heard, Eliot adopts a literary technique called stream of consciousness. And basically, consciousness refers to when you're awake and aware of what's going on around you. Stream of consciousness is used in literature a lot. That's when the writer tries to write down exactly what people are thinking. And as you go through life, as you go through your daily life, of course, there are hundreds and hundreds of things going through your mind, different thoughts about this, different thoughts about that. And stream of consciousness tries to actually write all that stuff down. What is exactly going on in your mind?
Sometimes it can be a little confusing, although I think in this particular poem, it's not. You've got nice little sentences. Some authors just string together long sentences where there's no break. That's hard to understand. This isn't. Some of his phrases are so great. I really recommend that our readers look at this, or our listeners. This narrative method attempts to record the thoughts, perceptions, how someone perceives something is how someone views it, and even memories passing through a character's mind. Our mind is really busy. There are a lot of things going on. And so he tries to capture everything that this character, J. Alfred Prufrock, is thinking and write it down. Narrative is just a spoken or written account. If you narrate something, you're telling the story out loud. There are some plays where there's a narrator on stage who is actually telling the story as characters act out the story in front of you. Some movies, you can hear a voice that's telling the story underneath the acting. That's narration. So it's a narrative method that he's using. I talked about what a perception is. There are even memories that are passing through his mind that T.S. Eliot's trying to write down in the poem that you see.
Yep. As I mentioned before, of course, lots of us have lots of things going through our minds all the time. So this is an attempt to actually write it all down. His thoughts, his perceptions, how he sees things, how he feels about things, and his memories, all these things passing through his mind. And the way Prufrock exposes his interior world thus becomes an iconic soliloquy in English poetic history. So, therefore, the way he exposes his interior world, which means the way he shows us what he's thinking, well, that has become an iconic soliloquy. Iconic means it's something that stands for the whole range of things there. An icon means kind of an idol or sort of a leader of a certain business
period of time.
Period of time or something.
Some time era, yeah.
And if we talk about a soliloquy, that of course is used in literature a lot. It's just kind of like when a character just goes off and talks by himself.
It's a monologue.
And you're basically telling all your thoughts and feelings, either to yourself or to the audience or whatever. This happens a lot in Shakespeare when the characters kind of step aside and start talking for several minutes in a very long speech, a soliloquy. So, yes, this is an iconic soliloquy, which means it's a very famous monologue in English literature.
Very much. So, the next paragraph starts out with the widely quoted first lines of the poem are significant or important in that. Why are they important? In that just tells you you're going to hear why they're important right now. They set the tone for the rest of the work. You could also say the first lines of the poem are significant because they set the tone for the rest of the work. In that is more formal English. It's really cool if you can learn this. We use it more in writing, although there are a lot of very educated people who will use in that when they're speaking, but you should know what those two words there mean. It just means because. So they set the tone. You get the feel. You get a feel for the rest of the poem once you read the first couple of lines. If something's widely quoted, it means a lot of people have repeated these lines again and again, so they're very famous. Most people know the first couple of lines of this poem because of that.
Yeah, what a comparison here. The comparison of the evening to an anesthetized patient lying on an operating table operating table reflects Prufrock's frame of mind. So if you're going for a stroll in the evening, you might be looking at the trees, looking at the stars or the moon or something like that. But who would think of the evening as a patient about ready to have an operation? They are anesthetized on the operating table.
It's kind of crazy, right?
Yeah, that certainly reflects his frame of mind. Gee, as I look up at the stars there and the moon, I'm reminded of somebody about ready to have themselves cut open by a doctor to remove a cancerous tumor or something like that.
Well, yeah, and it could stand for several things. Pain, going through the pain of walking into that social gathering. It could also mean if you're anesthetized or etherized, as they use in the poem, you can't really respond or do anything. So maybe he feels like if he goes into the social setting, he'll stand there like he's, been put out and can't really contribute or talk or say anything. It's very smart. I love this guy.
Yeah. Yep, you're helpless and other people are going to operate on you.
Hurt you, yeah.
They're going to dissect you and take a look at your innards and stuff like that. So
Judge
of course,
you, yeah.
Yes, indeed. So this, of course, all reflects his frame of mind, which means how he's thinking at the time, how he's feeling. Now, the image implies that his spirit is in a dreadful state and needs to be cured. So this is the image that we see. It implies or kind of tells us that his spirit or his, his general frame of mind is in a dreadful state. Dreadful just means bad, depressing, dark, negative. And, of course, it needs to be cured. He can't go on living like that. He's got to be more optimistic if he wants to survive. And that about brings us to the midway point of our explanation for today. So let's stop now and take a break and listen to our Chinese teacher.
大家好，欢迎收听 English Digest， 我是哈利。今天我们要阅读的文章是 Unit 14文学单元的第3天课程。在今天的文章中，我们将会知道 The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock 这首诗所要传达的意义。首先，我们看到第一段的第一句。The love song of J. Alfred Prufrock is referred to as a dramatic monologue, a kind of poem in which a fictional character addresses a silent listener. 阿尔弗瑞德·普鲁弗洛克的情歌被称作是戏剧独白。这种诗里有一名虚构角色对一名沉默听者说话。动词 refer 是提到、参考的意思。片语 refer to A as B 就是指将 A 视为 B。相当于 see, view, regard, take A as B 或 think of A as B, look on A as B. 例如 The Great Pyramid of Giza in Egypt is seen as one of the greatest architectural achievements in the world. 埃及吉萨的大金字塔被视为世界上最伟大的建筑成就之一。另外，片语 refer to 是提及的意思。例如 In his speech,The priest referred to the Bible several times. 这位牧师在他的演讲中提到圣经好几次。Refer 的名词为 reference, R-E-F-E-R-E-N-C-E, 有提及、查阅、参考书目、推荐信的意思。要注意的是 refer 和 referee 的拼法很像，不要混淆。Referee, R-E-F-E-R-E-E指的是篮球、足球之类运动竞赛的裁判。我们接着看到第二段的第一句。The widely quoted first lines of the poem are significant in that they set the tone for the rest of the work. 这首诗被广泛引用的头几行，其重要性在于它们为其余的诗行定了基调。动词 quote 是引用、引述的意思。本句的 quoted 是过去分词当形容词用。用来修饰后面的名词 first lines， 意思是被引用的。动词做形容词用时会变成现在分词 VING 或过去分词 VPP， 差别在于 VING 表示主动， VPP 表示被动。例如 A sleeping baby 正在睡觉的婴儿， A broken cup 破掉的杯子。 VING 表示动作正在进行， VPP 表示动作已完成。例如 A falling leaf 正在掉落的叶子， A fallen leaf 已经掉在地上的叶子。 VING 表示引发某种情绪， VPP 表示感受某种情绪。例如 A surprising story 令人惊讶的故事， A surprised boy 感到惊讶的男孩。今年学测综合测验第24题就考了 Polluted waters 被污染的水域。
We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back, guys. We're talking about some of the themes and the messages in the poem The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock. When we left you, we were talking about the first lines of the poem, how they have been quoted by a lot of people and that they set the tone for the rest of the work. We were talking about what he might have meant by this patient lying on an operating table and how it kind of indicated what Prufrock was thinking at the time or his frame of mind, how he was feeling about things. Tom talked about how the image implies or hints, gives a suggestion that his spirit is in a dreadful state, a terrible state, depressed, and he needs to be cured. He needs to find a cure so he feels better about himself and about life. He really doesn't think very much of himself. If you go on and read the poem, he doesn't, he's not very positive about himself. So, moreover, it says, anesthesia engenders a sense of paralysis. Anesthesia is what is given to us to numb us. And if they give you general anesthesia, it actually puts you out completely. You're no longer conscious. You can't feel pain, which is a good thing if you're having surgery because you don't want to feel that. If you engender something, it kind of brings that idea up to you. It causes you to think of a certain thing. It gives rise to something, you could say. It engenders, it brings about this sense of paralysis. If you're paralyzed, of course, you cannot move. So a sense of paralysis. Actually, there's I think our writer actually uses this paralysis analysis or paralysis by analysis. I've heard that phrase too, or analysis paralysis. Some people overthink everything and then they can't make a decision. I actually have a friend like this. She's brilliant. I mean, she's one of the smartest people I know. She teaches in a very famous school in New York City. She cannot make simple decisions. It's crazy.
Right. So, again, this first line kind of tells us about being paralyzed, basically a state of paralysis. And that foreshadows or kind of gives us some indication of what's going to happen in the future. It foreshadows his lethargy, which means basically not being excited about things and not having energy to do things. Lethargic is the adjective of this word. That's more common. I feel very lethargic today. I don't feel like doing anything. I just want to stay home. I just want to sleep all day. I'm very lethargic, but this is lethargy, the noun form. Also irresolution, which is basically indecision. When you have to make decisions, I guess like your friend there at that famous school in New York there, just can't make decisions when you need to. And the reference to Hamlet in the latter part of the poem also echoes this condition. Remember Hamlet, Prince of Denmark, to be or not to be? That is the question. That famous line here, Hamlet, of course, is the quintessential person who cannot make up his mind after his uncle killed his father. And the uncle married the mother, and Hamlet knows I have to kill this low-life scum, but he just can't bring himself to do it, and he ends up having a sword fight with Laertes later on in the play, and his uncle gets killed by somebody else, actually, I think, or something like that, or accidentally. I'm not quite sure, but in any case, they are making a reference to Hamlet in the latter part of the poem, and that echoes this condition. That's why Hamlet is mentioned, because Prufrock is also very indecisive.
Yeah, Hamlet is pretty famous for being the most indecisive hero in English literature. And that's where this phrase, analysis paralysis, or paralysis by analysis comes from. You'll hear both versions. Yeah, it's not good. If you overthink things and you never make a decision, you just never go anywhere. You never get anywhere. Even if you make a wrong decision, make the decision, figure out that it's wrong, and then change it.
Got to do something. Yeah, you got to move forward. Yeah.
Got to move. Now, from a historical perspective, or from this viewpoint, if you look back over history, the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock presents a bleak picture of humanity's collective psyche that is shattered by World War I. Bleak is just without hope. We often describe England's winters as being very bleak. Actually, I think there's a period of time in February in Taiwan where I feel like it's pretty bleak here. It's cold and rainy. If it's cold, I don't mind if there's sun. You know, that sun always makes you feel better. But if it's raining and cold, I know when I first came back to Taiwan about 12 years ago, I think we had 20 straight days without sun. I was counting them.
Oh, no.
And even I was getting depressed, and I'm not very depressed. I'm kind of a happy person. So bleak, just lacking any sort of hope. So it presented a bleak picture of humanity's collective psyche. Your psyche is your mind, guys. So collective means everybody and how they're thinking and feeling. It was really hurt by World War I. You know, anytime you're involved in a war like that, where a lot of people die and are suffering, it's pretty depressing and bleak.
Yeah, that was a big joke, that war there. People are still trying to figure out what the heck they were fighting about. It was a totally useless war in which millions of people died.
So sad.
And Europe's soil was stained in blood for many years to come. So yes, everybody in humanity was thinking, how the heck could that happen? Gee, this world kind of sucks. Nothing good is ever going to happen in the future if something like that could happen. And the post-war generation, the people who lived after World War I, that generation was traumatized by the past, worried about the future, and helpless in the present. Hey, that sounds very bleak. It sounds very depressing. It sounds very depressing. They were traumatized by the past. If you're traumatized, that means something bad happened, and you're just shaken. You're shocked, and you just can't really move forward. You don't know what to do.
Yeah, that happens quite often to people who suffer some sort of traumatic event or suffer through trauma. Soldiers are often very disturbed by what they see and experience in wars and then come back and have a hard time getting back into real life. So for many modernist writers, human civilization was crumbling, just, being destroyed little by little, and the world was fractured. If something is fractured, it's broken apart. If you break your arm or break your leg, you'll hear a doctor say, oh, you have a fracture. They won't say, oh, you broke your arm. Doctors like to use the word fracture. So if you see fractured, you know it's broken. This feeling of fragmentation, being in little pieces, like a puzzle, was demonstrated or shown in Prufrock's stuttering hesitation and sense of being. If you demonstrate something, you show something, or maybe you show how something works. If you go to a grocery store, they demonstrate a product by giving you a taste.
Right, and he had this stuttering hesitation. Stuttering oftentimes refers to a speech impediment when you can't get your words out. We kind of stutter sometimes in this program ourselves. And his existence seems to be only an accumulation or a collection together of numerous worthless moments, as he broodingly remarks, I have measured out my life with coffee spoons. Wow, people sometimes measure their lives with how much money they have or how many successes they have. This guy is measuring his successes with coffee spoons. He does this broodingly, which means he's just kind of reluctantly saying this, or he's doing this in a depressive state of mind.
Yeah. So despite its gloomy imagery, this continues to engage modern readers. I think sometimes just because of the phrases he uses. I love that line. I've measured out my life with coffee spoons. This can have different meanings. Maybe he just counts the days by how many cups of coffee he drinks. Or maybe you want to measure your life out in buckets, where lots of good things happen and not just little tiny things. So gloomy just means really depressing. It's very close to bleak. So something's gloomy if it's dark or poorly lit. It's depressing, frightening. It's very depressing to think of this guy's life being so without hope or so depressed. So read it to learn some really great phrases. I love it just because of the English imagery is beautiful. If you engage with something, you really get interested and fascinated by it. We think this particular poem will continue to engage everyone for years to come. Right now, we're going to listen to our Chinese teacher.
我们接着看到文章第3段的第一句 From a historical perspective, the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock presents a bleak picture of humanity's collective psyche that is shattered by World War I. 从历史的观点来看，阿尔弗瑞德·普鲁弗洛克的情歌呈现了一幅人类集体心灵被第一次世界大战粉碎的凄凉图像。名词 perspective 是看法、观点、角度的意思。如果我们要说从某人的观点看来，我们可以说 from somebody's perspective 或是 from the perspective of somebody。例如 From my perspective, marriage is based on mutual trust. 就我的观点看来，婚姻是建立在互信之上。如果要表达对某事物的观点，就要在 perspective 后面加上 on。例如 Mike had a different perspective on the new labor law. 麦克对这条新的劳动法规有不同的观点。要注意的是 perspective 和 prospective 的拼法很像，不要混淆。prospective P-R-O-S-P-E-C-T-I-V-E 是形容词，意思是有可能发生的，有希望的。例如 The salesperson is trying hard to find prospective clients. 这位销售员正努力寻找可能的客户。我们接着看到文章的最后一句 Despite its gloomy imagery, the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock continues to engage modern readers. 尽管意象阴郁，阿尔弗瑞德·普鲁弗洛克的情歌仍持续吸引着当代读者。介系词 despite 有尽管、虽然的意思，就相当于 in spite of， 后面只可接名词或 VING， 不可以接一完整句子。例如 Despite losing the game, the team didn't feel frustrated. 尽管输掉比赛，这支队伍不会感到挫折。Despite 后面如果加上 the fact that 就可以接一完整句子。这时候 Despite the fact that 就相当于 although 或 though。例如 Despite the fact that there was a typhoon coming, Mark still went mountain climbing with his friends. 尽管有台风要来，马克仍然和朋友去爬山。以上是今天的课程内容，谢谢大家收听。
Okay, everybody, that brings us to the end of our lesson for today and to the end of our literature unit for this month. So hopefully you will be inspired to read this poem yourself. And hey, you can probably go on YouTube and find some videos of this poem being read aloud by T.S. Eliot himself. Listen and enjoy. You can actually do it on your smartphone so you don't have to put it away. Okay, that brings us to the end of our lesson. Thank you for joining us, and join us again next time. From all of us here at English Digest, I'm Tom.
I'm Stephanie. See ya.
Goodbye.